Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Renu Arora, formerly Head Education and Training Division, CSIR NISCARE, New Delhi. Today we are going to discuss the module Financial Planning, that is Sources and Generation of Income. This is from the paper Management of Libraries and Information Centers. This module will introduce you to financial planning, that is, sources of generation of income in libraries and information organizations. The objectives of the module are to get acquainted with financial management, to understand the importance of financial management in libraries, identify the sources of finance for libraries. In fact, we will learn the sources of finance are different that are from library to library. We will see what are sources of finance for academic libraries, public libraries, and special libraries. We'll also try to explain how income is generated in all kinds of libraries. We'll work out the methods of financial estimation for various kinds of library. In fact, financial estimation methods are different in academic libraries from public libraries and special libraries. We'll also highlight the major categories of expenditure in libraries. Library managers are responsible for a broad range of activities that rely on financial data, which includes managing day-to-day operations, maintaining expenditure in accordance with their budget, selecting optimum approaches for offering a service, determining prices to charge for services, requesting funds for a capital project, justifying projects and or staff, and justifying the existence of the library or the information center. As managers, librarians and information professionals are faced with decisions similar to those facing managers of other units within an organization. It is important that they too know about various aspects of financial management. Many of these decisions require the basic use of financial management techniques. Finances are thus essential for every human activity, and success in planning various activities is often dependent on the amount of finance available and the manner in which it is to be utilized. A basic knowledge of library finance, library expenditure, budgeting, and accounting is therefore very important for any library and information science professional. Let's first understand what is financial management. Financial management can be defined as the study of principles and practices involved in the financial operations of any organization. Libraries too are included here, as financial management also deals with various aspects of acquisition, distribution, and utilization of funds besides balancing of revenue and expenditure. In addition to this, the general control and evaluation of financial affairs is also within the purview of financial management. In addition to that, the responsibility of any parent organization is to take care of financial issues regarding the organization. So in case of libraries too, it is the responsibility of parent organization of the library to take care of financial issues involving raising of funds, investing of funds, preparation and approval of budget, and all other finance related matters. The role of the library is here to estimate its own financial requirements, preparation of budget annually for its functions, activities, programs, managing and spending of funds within the stipulated time frame, maintaining accounts and preparation of financial statements and reports. So in other words, we can say, or we can define financial management as any activity that takes care of the financial aspects of any organization, and for libraries too. And in fact, for libraries, financial management has to be carried out in a very, very careful manner. For accomplishing the library's mission to promote various services and activities in an effective manner, it is required that all library professionals and other officials carefully manage financial resources in a prudent and cost-effective manner. Accordingly, each official is responsible for adhering to the basic principles of financial management. These principles are: firstly, effective control, that is, principle of effective control. Secondly, principle of simplicity. Thirdly, principle of economy. Fourthly, regularity and far-sightedness. And lastly, the principle of flexibility. So, these principles cover all the aspects related to finances and ensure that the management acts in a responsible manner. Libraries and information organizations are service organizations and most of the times not for profit organizations. The managing of finances in this kind of organizations requires proper planning and accounting, as there is usually no earning but only spending most of the times. The services which are to be offered to are to be meticulously planned, as majority of services may have to be subsidized. So in view of this, some of the aspects related to Library Information Center finance are: promoting good library services depends on adequate finance and efficient library organization, and management depends on adequate financial provision in the library's budget. Secondly, for libraries, finance plays a very vital role, as these are service organizations and usually there is more of expenditure involved than income. Thirdly, libraries usually require capital funds for physical facilities like building, furniture, fittings, equipment, and machinery. Besides this, libraries also require recurring funds year after year for collecting, building, salaries and wages, maintenance, and operating the services for satisfying the requirements of their users. Let's now examine the sources of finance for libraries. Firstly, regular grants from parent body. Whether it is a public library, academic library, or a special library, regular money from parent body is required for sustenance of the library. Then ad hoc grants from other organizations. This may not be true for special libraries, but for academic and special libraries, ad hoc grants are required. Then grants which are coming as gifts and endowments. Fourthly, earned income from membership fees, subscriptions, sales or services, or otherwise earned by an organization. Then there are miscellaneous sources like sale of publication, sale of waste material from reprographic services, or other activities which bring in finances to the library. The financial grants usually given to libraries are of two kinds, namely recurring and non-recurring. The recurring grants are given for purchase of library materials like books, journals, operation of regular or continuing services or activities of the library, besides the salaries and wages of the library and staff members. These are made available every year. On the other hand, the non-recurring grants, these are given for specific purposes like building construction, setting up of library automation activity, renovation of existing facilities, purchase of furniture or computer systems or other equipment, etc. These are usually one-time grants and may be made available in one or two to three installments. Besides the recurring and non-recurring grants, a third type of grant is known as the ad hoc grant. This is also given at times to the libraries. This is usually a one-time grant given on a special recommendation or for setting up a special facility or a service. For example, the library may require a vehicle. So, as a special case, every 5 or every 7 or 8 years, grant for purchase of the vehicle may be given, or maybe some equipment has to be set up. So, special grant may be given. This is referred to as ad hoc grant. In addition to that, different types of libraries receive funds from different sources. And in the subsequent sections of this particular module, we will discuss sources of finance for each type of library. Financial grants. The financial grants usually given to libraries are of two kinds, namely recurring and non-recurring. The recurring grants are given for purchase of library materials like books, journals, operation of regular or continuing services or activities of the library, besides the salaries and wages to the library staff members. These are made available every year. The non-recurring grants are those grants which are given for specific purposes like building construction, setting up of library automation activity, renovation of existing library facilities, purchase of furniture or computer systems or other equipment, etc. These are usually one-time grants and may be made available in 1 or 2 to 3 installments. Sources of finance. Sources of finance vary from library to library. With regard to public libraries, the sources of finance are government grants, which could be recurring or non-recurring, subscriptions. These are from membership of the library users who provide annual library subscription. Library cess. Library cess is a kind of tax collected by the state government from the library users or people of a particular community. Endowments. Endowments are usually made available by big people who have money and they give it for welfare of the libraries. Fines from overdue books. In some of the large libraries, like large academic libraries or large public libraries, money can come from fines charged from overdue books from users. Sale of wastages. Lot of material which is not of use for a long period can be disposed of. So sale of waste is another source of income for libraries. And lastly, receiving free publications. Free publications are made available for a large number of libraries, and besides this, many publications can be acquired on exchange basis as well. Sources of finance for academic libraries. Academic libraries can be school libraries, college libraries, or university libraries. And the sources of finance for each category of academic libraries differs. For example, for school libraries, the sources are a certain percentage of total school fund from the school authorities is given to the school library. Then students are annually charged library fee, which goes towards the well-being of the school library, and also contributions from the local or state government are also another source. Besides this, gifts and endowments to the school library are another source of finance. Now coming to college libraries. Firstly, allocation from current operating funds of the college. Library fees charged from students, which is an annual income for the college library. Then gifts and endowments, fines of overdue books, and grant from University Grants Commission and state or local authorities are some of the sources of finance for college libraries. And lastly, with regard to university libraries, the major sources of finance are financial support from the parent university, grants from the University Grants Commission and the state governments, library fees from students, which is again an annual income for the academic library, that is the university library, Other sources of finance in university libraries are sale of publications, sale of waste paper, reprographic services, etc. Sources of finance for special libraries. Unlike the academic and public libraries, the special libraries are completely dependent on their parent organization for receiving funds, as they exist for the sole purpose of giving information support to the users of the parent organization. Here, besides the annual allocation of funds, special provisions are usually made when the parent organization takes some new project or activity, and special material is required to support the particular activity. In this case, many times the funding may come from the individual or the organization who is sponsoring the particular project or the particular new activity. In case of special libraries attached to large government organizations, a certain percentage of the budget of the parent organization is made available to the special libraries. This goes for the special libraries belonging to national information centers, etc. Library expenditure. Let's now know what are the different areas associated with library expenditure. Libraries spend money on reading materials, that is, books, journals, pamphlets, reports, CDs, etc., user services, consumables, and other utilities. The main aspect of library expenditure is to take care of the fact that users are given maximum benefit by spending the minimum amount possible. The chief characteristics of library expenditure are: firstly, library is a spending organization. Because library is a spending organization, there is no question of earning money for itself. So all the time we have to see that only expenditure has to be carried out. Secondly, library is an organization that keeps growing all the time. Because new and new material is being added, services undergo revision to keep pace with the modern times. So this necessitates that the library, being a growing organization, has to grow all the time. And thirdly, library expenditure is recurring. So year after year, money has to be put into the libraries so that libraries can run, keep up to date, and operate all the times without any problem. Principles of library expenditure. The principles of library expenditure are four. Firstly, principle of economy. Secondly, principle of maximum aggregate benefit. Thirdly, principle of advanced planning. And fourthly, principle of equitable allocation. In libraries, there are the various competing principles, namely the need to sustain funding to the library system and the need to protect the resources required by various units or the library for their own ongoing activities. Additionally, meeting the needs of professional staff of library in the present day technological world will also have to be taken care of. The decisions pertaining to libraries' priority too are required to be taken into account all the time, and it has to be not just on annual basis but to be carried out as an ongoing regular activity. So therefore, libraries have to ensure that the principle of economy, advanced planning, and equitable allocation are carried out, besides achieving maximum aggregate benefit for whatever is acquired for the libraries. Let's see how we can classify the library expenditure. In fact, library expenditure is classified under several heads. It could be for books and journals or any other type of reading materials. Depending on the type of library, books and journals, finances for books and journals are to be allocated. For example, for academic libraries, more of textbooks are acquired. On the other hand, for special libraries, more journals may be subscribed. Then, salaries and wages is another major expenditure head. Besides this, libraries require stationery and other consumables all the time. Binding of books and journals. In academic libraries, books are more, so binding for books is required, and for special libraries, journals are there, so binding of journals is required. Then, postage and telecommunication charges. In the last few years, postage charges have more or less come down, but telecommunication charges are on the increase, so more funding has to be provided for that. Then vehicles for the library are required. Depending on the size or type of library, libraries have to have vehicles. Then equipment. Equipment is of various categories. So purchase of equipment is one category, but usually on the yearly basis, maintenance of equipment is another major expenditure head. Furniture of the library could be varied. We require tables, chairs for users as well as for staff members, furniture for placing the equipment, etc. So, various categories of furniture is required. Then, maintenance is another major expenditure of the library, which includes maintenance of the building, security of the building, cleaning, electricity, water, etc. Then many libraries take up printing and publishing activity. So in these libraries, one expenditure head could be printing and publishing. In addition to that, there are several other miscellaneous expenditures which could be under the head miscellaneous or contingency, because some emergent expenditure may come up. Maybe some equipment breaks down or some other emergent expenditure comes. So for miscellaneous and contingency, fund has to be kept on one side. Let's now see the various methods of financial estimation. For all kinds of libraries, whether it is a public library or an academic library or a special library, methods of financial estimation are per capita method, formula method, proportionate method, and method of details. In the per capita method, depending on the number of users of the library, some amount is allocated. For example, in academic libraries, we have students, teachers, researchers, and other staff. So, depending on the category of staff, some amount is allocated, and this is known as the per capita method. In the second case, that is the formula method. A formula for the library is available. For example, depending on the number of students, how many books are to be acquired, and how much funding is to be given, based on the formula, amount can be allocated. Then in case of proportionate method, it is usually whatever the parent organization receives, certain proportion of that is for the particular library. For example, depending on the total university budget, certain percentage can be allocated for the university library. Similarly, in case of colleges also, the same thing is done. In special libraries also, depending on the type of projects that are going on, certain proportion could be allocated for acquiring, collection, etc. And lastly, method of details. Method of details in the modern times is seen to be the best method of financial estimation. Here, for whatever activity funding is required, all the details regarding the equipment, resources, the human resources also, all details are made available and financial estimation can be carried out. Per capita method. Factors that help in determining the per capita financial amount are average cost of the reading material. Secondly, average income of the community society using the library services. Thirdly, future requirements of the library. Fourthly, levels of library staff. And lastly, applicable technologies for providing library services. In this method, usually the library users are categorized, and for each category, appropriate amount is appropriated. Then calculation is made for all the users in each category, and in this manner it is the safest method to calculate the library finance based on per head of the library users. It is vital that some standard be established with proper approval of the authorities. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to convince the financial dispersion agencies to approve grants. Amongst the various methods of financial estimation, formula method has been found to be very effective. The formula method describes a situation in which the distribution of funds to a library is based on some kind of formula. Such a formula could determine the precise amount of money to be allocated to each institution or the relative size of the whole budget which each organization gets. This method is considered to be very similar to the per capita method for financial estimation. For example, a state government may distribute funds to libraries with the state university or college system based on a particular formula, input for which might be the number of undergraduate students, postgraduate students, researchers, faculty members, the extent of the collection already available, or other such factors. Proportionate method. The proportionate method is based on the presumption that authorities provide adequate funds to the parent body of the library, and out of which the parent body fixes a certain fixed amount for the library. Usually, as a norm, a certain percentage of the whole budget is fixed for the library, and the library has to manage out of that amount. In this method, usually the institutional budget component of the library is used as a measure to determine the percentage of the budget which should be allocated to the library. For this, in India, various standards have been recommended. The University Grants Commission has recommended that 6.5% of a university's budget be considered as a reasonable amount to be spent on its library. The Commission further suggests that based on circumstances, the expenditure could vary from 6.5 to 10%. The circumstances can be, for example, planning of new services, collection building in a special subject area, going in for library automation, or any other activity. Method of details. In this method, all the items of expenditure are to be taken into consideration for the purpose of preparing financial estimates. The recurring, non-recurring, including the capital expenditure, are also to be taken into consideration. Detailed analysis of each item is carried out with proper justifications and supporting documents. This method requires that all activities and the resources required for carrying out each activity are highlighted with cost requirement, in each case, in other words, showing financial realities. The details are thus put up to the authorities with request for finances. This is considered the best method in the modern times of financial estimation, and is many times also followed by a presentation. Here, for each and every activity, details are provided. So this shows that the funds acquired will be used in an efficient and appropriate manner. So therefore, this is considered as one of the modern methods of financial estimation. Financial responsibility. Various studies related to financial management of library and information organizations has revealed that the librarian or the information professional has to be responsible for the financial management of the library. Some of the procedures which are recommended for efficient financial management are: firstly, preparation of estimates for the fiscal year. Secondly, presentation to the parent organization. Thirdly, approval by the parent organization. And fourthly, responsible for management of funds for the fiscal year. So every library information professional has to bear the financial responsibility for his or her library, because whatever is required to be spent for a particular year, for that estimation has to be carried out. It is a good idea that whenever the activities are being carried out, some notes are made so that for the forthcoming years, estimates are put in a proper format and proper shape and based on facts. And when presentation to the parent organization is made, it should be based on facts and figures and with proper support material. Approval by parent organization is a very big requirement in order to carry out the financial responsibility in a proper manner. Because when work is done in a proper manner, the parent organization will definitely approve of the estimates which have been prepared. And besides this, whatever funds are required, these are to be managed in a proper manner, because whatever is spent for that, maintaining records, and whatever is lacking, again maintaining records for that, so that in the coming year assessment of the desired funding can be made. Let's see what we have learned in this module. We have learned that financial management is the key tool in controlling and directing the resources of any organization. In fact, it is the money or the funding which makes a library work, because finances are required not only to acquire resources but also to pay salaries to people, to maintain the organization and carry out all the activities. So we have seen that the principles of financial management are required for guiding the managers, because these principles are the guidelines based on which we acquire funds and we also spend the funds. Efficient library organization and management depends on adequate financial provisions in the library's budget. We have also seen sources of finance in libraries. We have seen sources of finance in academic libraries, in public libraries, and in special libraries. We have also learnt about principles of library expenditure, because just like our own money, we cannot spend the finances of the library. So expenditure has to be carried out in a very careful manner. In fact, for every penny that we spend or every rupee that we spend, we have to account for that, and it has to be spent in an effective and efficient manner. We have also carried out classification of library expenditure, which is basically on reading material, equipment, staff salaries, and other activities of the library. We have also learned about methods of financial estimation, which are basically the capita formula method and also method of details. We have also learned about financial responsibility in libraries. The other details, etc., of this module are given in the e-material, and references are also given along with examples. Thank you.